What a fine day today to sit back, relax, wait for Easter to come, and in the meantime talk about experience, values, random numbers and Excel files. I would say that's not the case, but this is exactly what I'm going to be doing today. So let me pose you with this scenario. Someone asks you, what is the best spot in the game to grind for experience? If I want to maximize experience over money to get to 61 as quickly as possible, get that free sweet AP ring, and once I have that, then I can focus on money per hour. What would you answer? Most people by default will just say Bandits, Fogans or Nagas. And you're not necessarily wrong by saying that, actually you're correct. In this video, initially I wanted this to be a beginner's guide in a way to where they should grind with lower AP to get experience, because I get asked this question very often and I would just like to point them here whenever I get asked this question. And actually I'm pretty sure a lot of other people get this question in the guild chat by new players, or maybe you are the one asking it. In case, that's the topic for today. A couple of days ago I tested a bunch of areas on my NA account on my level 60 Maehwa in the hopes that I would find information that I didn't already know. I tested in the past a lot of areas, but in most of those instances I was already level 61, I already had soft cap gear or close to it, and when I have that kind of information, I'm not 100% sure if I should recommend it to someone who is lower in level than me, doesn't have as much class experience and doesn't have as much AP, so they will grind slower and maybe my values are not necessarily relevant. That's why I decided maybe it's worth retesting a couple of these areas and see what are the results. Now I'm going to try to briefly go over these areas and not spend too much time on them, because when I do spend too much time on them and talk about whatever I want, this is how long the video turns out. So instead I'm just going to point out that I made an Excel file for all of these. Basically the combination of about 10 hours of both grinding and doing math. You are welcomed, you can just download the Excel file, stare at it for 5 minutes, and if you are pleased with that outcome, you don't need to watch the rest of the video, but if you want, I guess, let me discuss about those areas a little bit, just a little bit. So I chose only areas that have Marni stones, because obviously those that don't have are not exactly worth even talking about when it comes to purely experience, just pushing for 61 as fast as possible. Out of those that do have Marni stones, not all of them are worth grinding, like sulfur mines or centaurs. Those are not really worth grinding for experience, and the only ones actually left that could compete for the best ones are Fogans, Nagas, Bandits, the forever everlasting trio. Then I have Bashim base. I felt like revisiting this one because I didn't see it in a long time and I forgot how the place actually looks like. Blood Wolves and Sherekhan Ruins, both from Dragon, and that's pretty much it. Media, not worth talking about. Serendia and Calfian, not worth talking about. And from Sylvia, I will talk about towards the end of the video briefly about Mirumok Ruins and also the AFK training books, because why not? Those are also a method of making experience. Now, before I move forward, I should mention I initially kind of wanted this to be a new player guide. Probably it's not going to, because most people at this point know what each spot offers. There's a lot of information out there. What I want to discuss here is mainly what are the values from the spots at level 60 in particular, and why those 3 spots are so good and what the competitors have to offer, and why is not good enough to actually compete with those 3 spots that keep getting recommended. when I started this test, I initially was under the impression, like I keep hearing from every single person, that Maehwas are slow grinders, they are not a good class for grinding, so I was under this impression that if I test them on my Maehwa, I can make the data relatable to people who are playing maybe strikers, ninjas, kunoichis, tamers, classes who are in general slower at grinding because they don't have those big AoEs and in certain areas they don't do so well. What I learned while doing this is that Maehwas actually grind very fast. I would probably compare them to rangers in terms of grinding speed. They are, at least my Maehwa, with my current understanding of the class, which is not the best, and my current gear, is somewhat slower than what my ranger would typically grind, but it is definitely faster than my wizard in most of the one-shottable areas. That being said, let me discuss, as I said, briefly about those spots. Starting with Nagas, I tried my best to actually grind as fast as I could on the spots, you know, with my limited knowledge, and to grind exactly 1 hour on each spot. I do have my per hour values on those charts. You can ignore them completely, this is an experience video. 1 hour of grinding is in no way a relevant money per hour value. I just simply stamped an approximation of what I had in my inventory from that one grinding session, just to see what I can expect out of visiting that said spot, because my goal was to visit all of them and at the end pick one of them that, you know, to return to for future grinding. So I will probably show for each individual spot the specific block from the Excel file. So from Nagas, I only got to grind here 44 minutes during nighttime. I didn't get to do an entire hour of grinding because of that nighttime, and the result was I got to kill almost 5,000 monsters per hour, which is pretty good in my opinion. At least in my opinion, seems higher than what I was expecting. The experience rate combined with the Marnie stones is 3.2% per hour at my established base experience rate, which I didn't point out yet this time, is 298%. Why? Because I assume most people who want to grind purely for experience will have at least the basics, you know, the 20% from helmet, those experience gems from your helmet, you will have a combat book running, you will have the cron meal, the simple cron meal, at the very least that. Pets and titles on NA, I don't have that high buffs on those. The normal 100%, a costume which everyone has, and the weekend buff, because I assume most people grind the most amount of time on weekends, maybe, which brings me to that 298. I converted all of the experience values to that 298% and 157 for skill experience respectively. You can, on the Excel file, just modify that number and all of the other blocks will go up in experience value, obviously. Still, at Nagas, 3.2% per hour, not bad for a start. For Fogans, I was expecting pretty much identical stats. Here I did get to grind exactly 1 hour. I was using that 50% experience scroll to open the scroll, and when it would expire it would be exactly 1 hour, so I would stop the test. I did that, and here I got to kill only 4.8 thousand monsters per hour, slightly less, not by a lot, and the experience basically it was the same as Nagas. So there's not much of a difference at least for my Maehwa, on the experience comparing Fogans and Nagas. Exactly what I was expecting. Bandits, for this one I chose the cliffside rotation because it is the best one there for experience, and the results were exactly what I was expecting, slightly higher than Nagas and Fogans. Maybe it's because here I got to kill 5.1 thousand monsters, so more monsters, but still it is higher. The money per hour here, not exactly amazing from that one session of 1 hour. 17 millions, maybe because I have tier 1 pets on my NA account, or because I had bad luck with drops. That pretty much concludes the big trio. I expected these values. What I was mainly interested in is how the other spots compare to these three. Can they actually be anywhere close to worth grinding? So I went to Bashim's hoping, that maybe there is a bad reason why people don't go there. I mean, no one ever says they go grind Bashims, so I went there. After half an hour I got bored. I couldn't even get myself to grind the full 60 minutes. I grinded only half an hour, and experience rate 2.7% per hour, actually noticeably lower than the other three spots. So I guess there is a real reason why people don't come here. Money per hour rate, at least from that half an hour, should be 9.6 millions per hour. So you could say it's bad luck with the drops, but even so, it's still terribly bad. Bashims, don't go there. I would recommend anything but Bashims at this point. For Blood Wolves and Sherekhan Ruins, these two were the ones where I expected to have the most trouble, because I knew from my wizard tests in the past that they are not always one-shottable and you kind of need higher AP to kill them. So at Blood Wolves I initially felt that because I wasn't able to one-shot the packs. I believe there were certain skills at times that would one-shot the monsters, but often I would need 2 to 3 skills per pack. There's also the fact that my Maehwa doesn't have high AoEs, so I would not always hit all of the monsters at once, which does slow down my grinding. After, again, exactly 60 minutes spent here on the spot, I used the same rotation from my spot review, just because it's the only one I actually know how to grind, and I got 2.2% experience per hour, actually worse than what I got at Bashim's. 1.5% skill experience, not 1.5%, my bad, 1 skill point level up and 52%. I just realized I don't think I mentioned skill experience by now, but it is in the charts, it's easy to read. I can't really use brackets, sadly, so I can't show it as it is in game. You will have to live with the 5 digits. And the money per hour here, 13 millions. I was expecting more in a way, but maybe bad luck with the drops. That's always the case because it's just 1 hour. I didn't spend too much time. My main focus, as I said, experience. Conclusion, it is actually worse than Bashim's. Why should I return here? Answer, I shouldn't. The monster skill per hour only 3.3 thousand. Maybe you can kill more of them. My wizard definitely can kill more, but at level 60 with my current gear on my Maehwa, which is pretty decent in my opinion, at least for grinding, it seems to be not enough. Moving on, let's talk about Sherekhan Ruins, because this one is meh in a way, I guess. Here I messed up the test. The weekend buff started in the middle of my test, so I had to basically restart it. I grinded here 78 minutes, so 1 hour and 18 minutes, out of which only 30 are the actual experience test. I used the 30 minutes for the experience value and then the 78 minutes for the money per hour value and the trash per hour, not trash per hour, monsters per hour, my bad. I'm starting to lose myself in my own numbers. The experience rate here, I was surprised that the Marnie Stone value is so high, which means that the Marnie Stone value can actually keep up with other spots like Bandits, maybe, I don't know, not Bandits, maybe just Fogans or Nagas, but where this spot actually falls is in the normal experience. I wish the developers will buff the normal experience from these monsters a little, because that's basically all this place needs to be viable to grind here for experience. Still, the overall experience that I got was pretty much identical to the one at Blood Wolves, which equals bad. Why? Because here I encountered a different problem. Since I wasn't able to one-shot the monsters reliably, they would more often than not be one-shottable, but some of them would survive and they would keep following me, and in order to keep grinding fast, I ignored them, and there were times when the monsters in front of me would keep resetting because I had too many following me, so I had to turn around and kill those. So maybe that slowed down my grinding a little bit. In total, I killed 3,800 monsters per hour. That was my speed for this area, and I actually had a pretty decent luck with the drops. I got 2 of those red crystals and a bunch of other stuff. This area seems to drop Khafras quite often, so my average was about 30 millions per hour. Maybe it's worth returning to Sherekhan Ruins with my tier 1 pets to grind for money, I don't know. That's all of the 6 main spots that I tested. Besides these, there's the AFK training, which I included because I was just simply curious to see what I can expect out of maybe being 8 hours AFK overnight. So I bought 1 hour of training for experience and skill experience, and the result at our established almost 300% experience rate and 157 skill experience rate, I would get 0.35% experience per hour and 0 skill point level up and 54% per hour. Those are the values for just 1 hour of AFK training at level 60, which means that I can take that, multiply it by 8, and that would be my experience per one night. More or less at level 60, 3 hours of AFK training should be 1% at that 300% rate again. So seems low in a way, but at least it comes for free, I guess. So there is that. Talking about money consumption and the books actually costing money, this is where I would have to talk a bit more about Mirumok Ruins, because this area actually surprised me. I wasn't expecting Mirumok Ruins to be this good, and actually I never thought this was a thing. I discovered that Mirumok leeching is a real thing about a week ago, and it's quite hard to get parties for leeching when you are not in a guild, and when parties every single time ask you to have bells. If you don't have bells, they don't invite you. But in the end, I did get a party. Sadly, it was inconsistent grinding. They had to replace members every now and then, or people would show up asking for a duel for the spot and other stuff. So I couldn't exactly get 1 hour of grinding out of it, but at least I have Shadowplay, which saved me. Shadowplay saves 10 minutes of each clip every time for me, so that means I can open up one of them where they actually did grind consistently, and out of that I took 9 minutes where the party actually grinded, constantly. And if theoretically they could grind like that for 60 minutes without being interrupted, at Mirumok Ruins you can make about 3.4% per hour experience. The skill experience is inexistent, I'm not even going to mention it, but the normal experience is surprisingly high. It's actually a little bit higher than what I got at the Bandits, which is pretty incredible. Actually wait, it's not higher, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same value that I got at Bandits. So AFK sitting in the tree at Mirumok Ruins doing nothing, absolutely nothing, gives me the same experience rate as I would get trying my absolute best to get 5,100 monsters killed at Bandits. Pretty incredible. Sadly, not a lot of people actually want leechers. But if you are a newer player, I would definitely say try to join a guild, try to ask your guildies to let you come leeching, because whether you have 3 people in a party or 5, the experience rate is the same. It's the same 50% experience rate. By joining a Mirumok party, you're not actually doing anything bad for them. If you sit in that tree and do nothing, you don't get any loot. So I guess this is the downside of this method. You are AFK, you are making no money at all, but at least you're getting a bunch of experience in return. And your other teammates, they don't lose anything, they don't lose trash if they don't use special deals, which most parties I believe these days don't. They don't lose any money as well, and they don't lose any experience. You can rarely, there are parties who will let you join for free unless they are guildies. And sometimes, I mean, most of us don't have bells. Most of us don't, especially newer players like my NA account, don't have any bells to run for those parties. But there are those that ask you to have elixirs in return. And spending a couple of millions on the market, you can buy most party elixirs these days from the market straight up. Is in my opinion a fair trade. Just spend a couple of millions, pop the elixirs every 15 minutes, and then you can be AFK for the rest of the time, just earning free experience. I assume most people dislike this method and don't like leechers just because they do all of the work and you're doing nothing. That's probably the main reason. But if you can get nice enough people in your guild to let you leech, this is probably what I would recommend these days to be the best method of grinding experience, especially for newer players who may in fact grind even slower than what my Maehwa can grind, because these days I feel like I'm no longer a new player. I have the gear, I basically have full try boss gear, which means that I have enough to grind all of the spots almost as fast as my main account. So most new players will have even lower values than what my Excel file shows here. So Mirumok Ruins leeching is the way to go to get as much experience as possible. By the way, as a final mention, because you know what, this is again 20 minutes plus, I hate myself, but I'm not doing this again. I'm not. So before I leave, I will let you know that this is obvious. I mean, it's really obvious, but I still want to mention it because there are people out there who may not get this and may benefit from this. So from these files, the experience values can be scaled up and down very easily. Go and grind yourself it doesn't even matter at whatever rate. Just go and grind yourself with Marnie stones for, let's say, exactly 15 minutes or 30 minutes. See how many monsters you killed yourself. Then come here, download the Excel file, replace my monsters per hour value with your monsters per hour value, and there is your experience rate. Pretty easy. And then you can do that to scale the other areas if you wish. So that pretty much concludes my video on what is the best spot for experience at level 60. Honestly, I was expecting Bandits, Nagas and Fogans to be the best. I was hoping the other three areas, Sherekhan Ruins, Blood Wolves and Bashim base, to actually be somewhat close, but sadly they are not. At least not on my Maehwa. So yeah, I will leave you to enjoy your Easter, if it is Easter. If you see this video 1 month from now, too bad. Yeah, stay happy, level up, get experience, don't grief people and all of the good stuff. Bye.